So, how can Nigeria, which is home to a rich tapestry of cultures, traditions and languages that differ from one ethnic group to another, properly embrace cultural diversity and intercultural dialogue as a way of adding to the vibrancy of this country and building bridges that will foster peace and create a more harmonious society? Well, one way would be for the government to strive to ensure that every person in Nigeria, regardless of their cultural background, can fully participate in Nigerian society. So this week, as Nigeria joins the rest of the world in marking UNESCO's World Day of Cultural Diversity in a country that is riven with ethnic divisions, how can all the different shades of diversity be brought to light here? And with all the inter-ethnic and inter-communal clashes that we see occurring in this country, is this a difficult time for cultural diversity in Nigeria? Well, for more on this, I'm joined now in the studio by the Executive Secretary and CEO of the National Institute for Cultural Orientation, Otumba Biodun Ajiboye. Good to see you again.
Thank you very much, Charles.
How's it going?
Well, it's going pretty well. We are pushing. And we are convinced that we'll get to the destination, joyfully, happily, and with the task completed.
Well, let's go through that process, starting with World Day for Cultural Diversity. Briefly tell us why it is significant and how it's being marked in Nigeria.
Simple. How did we get to the point of actually having a day set aside to discuss, celebrate culture? At the time the world is planning the Millennium, Development Goals, it was realized that culture was left, out of that equation. Realizing that an organ of the UN, UNESCO, knew that it could have been a colossal error not to have taken culture along, decided to say, okay, fine, no problem. That was year 2000. By year 2001, UNESCO adopted a Universal Declaration on Cultural Diversity to say, okay, if that mistake was made, let us actually see how best we can factor in culture to play the role it's meant to play in fostering global peace, harmony, and even development. So by 2002, having concocted that idea, by 21st of May 2002, a World Cultural Day was, brought to life by UNESCO. And we begin to say, okay, the point at which we are now, let us see how well we can tackle our cultural problems or use culture as a tool to global peace and development. And that's exactly what it is. Right.
So beyond obviously UNESCO is on a global level. It's an organ of the United Nations. Beyond what the declaration of that day, how big an event is it in Nigeria here?
Ideally, I am convinced that going forward, it should be a very, very big and magnificent event that we should celebrate in Nigeria. And you see, whatever it is now, we're bringing up the awareness about culture a lot more than it used to be. The reason is simple. Regrettably, culture has been perceived as that peripheral, element that is just about entertain important guests, just clad in your costume and dance. That is what, and on the flip side of it, some feel culture is just about voodoo. You understand? But it's coming to a point where people like us who was born into culture, born to appreciate culture, should come out clearly to say that culture should actually be that element you take along policy processes. I said it before and I continue to say that if the primary sources of law are customs and tradition, and from what we see in the contemporary, governance, global contemporary governance, law is actually the pillar upon which governance, politics, and government rests. That means that custom and tradition, culture is very crucial. How well have we realized that in Nigeria? And that is the issue.
Well, that's an interesting way to see it. And in that regard, because you're obviously the CEO of the National Institute for Cultural Orientation, which is charged with promoting culture in all
As
its,
a matter of fact, propagating cultural philosophy.
So how are you what are you intending to do to mark this Cultural Diversity Day in Nigeria?
What we can do and what
we are saying what you can do. What are you doing?
What we are doing right now is to heighten the enlightenment about culture.
Right.
See, because if we roll out drums to say, oh yeah, all this, people will look at them and say, hey, what about this culture that they are shouting? So we need to prepare the grounds, heighten enlightenment. We are coming up with a program called the return of our cultural value. All of those will garner enough interest among people. By next year, we're going to go to a full-blown celebration.
Right.
You understand? But for now, this year, what we're doing is to say, hey, we cannot move forward without recognizing culture as an integral part of our development.
So basically, on a daily basis, you're embarking on an enlightenment sort of campaign,
that's what we're doing.
To try and deepen the understanding of Nigerians.
Perfectly, Charles.
Of the values of cultural diversity. So this day is an opportunity for people to learn, essentially to live together better.
Yes.
And tolerate each other and all the rest
You
of
realize that however difficult it is for people to like themselves or to agree with themselves, once you put a cultural festival in place, everybody comes out to smile, laugh, and participate. Just like the effect football has on our people, culture has similar effect. That means that culture is a force for unity. How well are we using it? We need to use it a lot more, and that's why we have these national festivals that are, that NCAC, our sister agency, orchestrates. And it is a point where we need to move beyond the dances, the drums. We need to begin to pull out the contextual essence of that gathering.
And it is the job of your agency to promote that intercultural dialogue, for example, and to try to combat polarization, cultural stereotypes, that kind of thing. In a country like Nigeria, I mean, that's a bit of a challenge, isn't it?
Almost everything we've done is a challenge, but we've overcome some of these challenges as a nation. Our cultural difficulty, or our difficulty in recognizing culture, didn't start now. It started from the point of colonialism. I mean, a renowned scholar once said, to kill a people is not by use of bombs and nuclear weapons. Just take their culture from them, and the people will die naturally. So when they were coming to colonize us, the first things they did was take our culture from us. We started dressing like them, eating their food, or feeling that their food is even better than ours. They changed our perception about ourselves. We lost that identity. We need to regain that identity. Once we regain the cultural identity, we infuse it into a acceptable national identity. Once a national identity is fostered, put on the table, then we can talk of citizenship, nationalism, patriotism, and all of that. So we need to put a lot of energy. First of all, we need to walk through our lawmakers and our policy makers, our diplomats. All of them should be tutored, should be given the opportunity for orientational retreats to appreciate exactly what our cultural divergence means and how we can use that divergence to better our lot, develop our people, foster unity. All of those things need to be properly harnessed and put on the table. And I'm happy that the president of Nigeria is quite interested in how we can use culture to solve a lot of societal problems, bring development, and is encouraging, the sector in no small measures to ensure that culture is not, left retarded or left behind. And that is my joy, and that is why, my minister, is extremely interested, and she's going from place to place to ensure that the cultural renaissance is brought to the fore. And that is exactly what we're trying to achieve with all these. Tomorrow is the World Culture Day. We're going to have a major, I'm going to do a press conference tomorrow to address, the press and talk about, deepen this idea of cultural diversity. How do we harness it for our unity and development.
In other words, in a culturally diverse country, and a country that is riven by competition, the ethnic groups are constantly competing with each other for power, for prominence, and all the rest of it. And underpinning a lot of that is incredible poverty, and therefore enormous competition for the available resources. You're going to come along and you're going to wave a magic wand and it's all going to go away.
Let me give you an instance. We conceived an idea of a monotechnic called Nigerian Academy for Cultural Studies. It's a monotechnic. And we are coming up with a cultural technology department. What are we talking about, cultural technology department? We had our own mode of dressing that can be infused into modernization and it will fit. We had our own cuisine that can be taken around the world, and the world will begin to love it the way we are beginning to love Chinese restaurant and Chinese food.
Yeah, but a lot of people internationally eat Nigerian food.
That's exactly the point. We need. It's not about us, about Nigerians abroad. It's about foreigners loving our food the way we love Chinese.
But it's also, I agree with you, and I agree, and I quite like the passion that you seem to have for this. But you have to put your house in order, don't you? I mean, if you travel to Nigeria as a tourist,
yeah,
what kind of experience can you expect? It's not really a sort of holiday destination, is it? Nigeria appears to be still a long way from that.
From being a holiday destination?
Well, I mean, if somebody was to come here, and they're coming to experience this culture and so, there's so many other reproaches that'll get in the way and stop them from actually coming here. That makes your job much more difficult.
Yes, I agree. I am not shying away from the difficulties inherent in my job. That's not the issue. The issue is I want to understand the difficulties. I want to find solutions to the difficulties. I want to face the difficulties headlong. And that's why I'm telling you about cultural technology. Let me tell you another thing we're doing to address the issue of putting our culture in a cocoon and the world cannot access it. We're coming up with a digital platform, a global digital platform that will showcase our culture. And it is going to be housed in the center of the world. A Nigerian American company is working on it. At the press of a button, you can appreciate the culture of Nigeria. If you choose Abia State, for instance, or I'm trying to guess what state you come from, actually.
Keep guessing.
Eh?
No, maybe
Anambra.
So it doesn't matter which state it is.
So Anambra, for instance.
Which state?
No, Anambra, for instance. And you at the press of a button in New York or wherever, any part of the world, you see the dresses of the Anambra people, the cuisine of the Anambra people, the dialects and tribes of the Anambra people, and everything about their culture. Now, do you understand, do you realize that well over 150 million Nigerian children are abroad that never, ever felt, oh, how do I get back to my roots?
That's a good point.
You understand? But we are going to create a language, a laboratory where our children born abroad can learn their indigenous languages
that's a good
and all
thing.
of that.
But
So
one thing you need to try to do is also try and get the people to stop you using the word tribe. It sounds autochthonous.
Tribe?
The word tribe. It's something that was used to describe.
Okay, so let's not use tribes again.
Countries.
No, let's not use tribe. Let's
many years
that's part
ago.
That's part of the problem.
Groups are tribal.
Part of the problem of language.
It's better to use ethnic groups.
Ethnic groups. No problem.
But let me ask you this: we haven't got that much time left, and I know
all the time. You don't always have time.
Moaning about time in a minute, but. Yeah, we've got 90 seconds. You're, in addition to the job that you're doing, you're obviously an APC chieftain. It's coming to 1 year in office for President Tinubu. I'd be interested in hearing your reflections on the changes that have taken place in Nigeria in the last year since he took over.
Yeah, since Tinubu took over, we have seen a leadership that is determined to make Nigeria work. We cannot shy away from the fact that as at the time Tinubu took over, Nigeria was almost on its knees. How?
By the same APC party.
No, we're talking about Tinubu's government now.
Yeah.
I said it
but
here.
it's the same party.
I said it here
but
during,
it is the same
I said
party,
it here during the campaign.
But it's
and
the same party,
I said it
isn't
here during the campaign.
But it's the same
I
party.
said it here during the campaign, and I want to repeat it again. That between Tinubu and Buhari are two different people. Tinubu had his own training. He had his own understanding. He had his own vision. And now he's on the saddle. Let us allow him to do what he has come to do.
Right.
As far as we can see, he's doing his best to make things work. And there has never been any leader so knowledgeable, so bold, so courageous to face the problems of Nigeria headlong. And if Tinubu continues, by the end of 4 years, we'll see a dramatic difference in the way Nigeria is.
Right, okay. Well, on that blatantly promotional note, I want to thank you very much indeed, Otumba Biodun Ajiboye, who is the Executive Secretary and CEO of the National Institute for Cultural Orientation. Thank you for enlightening us.
Thank you very much. I don't always have enough time when I come here. I don't know why. I think we have to reorganize our time process. It's not
well,
good
at
enough
least I'm leaving here laughing, which is always a nice thing to have. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.
That's it for this edition of Arise Prime Time. Join us again tomorrow from me and the entire team here in Abuja. Bye-bye, and thank you for watching.